The crowd was cheering, the lights were bright, and everything seemed normal until it wasn't. In just a few seconds, excitement turned into horror. What happened next left everyone in shock. This is one of the most heartbreaking moments ever seen in the world of bull riding. The arena was chaos. The kind of chaos that makes your heart race even when you're sitting in the crowd. The metal gate swung open, and a massive 1,500-pound bull came roaring out like a storm. That beast's name was Hard Times, and for Mason Lowe, that name would turn out to mean everything. Sitting high on that muscle-covered monster was a man who had lived his whole life for this exact moment. Mason wasn't just another cowboy chasing fame. He was calm, locked in, every muscle tight, every second focused. One hand gripped the bull rope, the other stretched free, the only thing standing between him and disaster. 8 seconds. That's all a bull rider gets to prove his worth. 8 seconds to survive chaos, pain, and gravity itself. And for Mason, those 8 seconds were everything he'd ever worked for. Hard Times exploded out of the chute, twisting, kicking, spinning like a live earthquake. Son's body snapped with each buck, but he stayed locked in rhythm, matching the bull's violence with his own control. The crowd was on fire, screaming with every turn. Mason had done this hundreds of times before. This was supposed to be routine. But that day in Denver, January 15th, 2019, something felt off. The energy was different, unpredictable. As the final second ticked down, Mason hit the buzzer. He had made it, another perfect ride. But before anyone could even celebrate, disaster struck. Hard Times jerked one last time, violently. Mason was thrown off, flipping backward toward the dirt. His protective vest absorbed part of the impact, but before he could roll away, Hard Times spun around, fast, instinctively, and brought both hind legs down hard. The sound was sickening. A 1,500-pound hoof slammed straight into Mason's chest. The crowd's roar died instantly. People froze. You could see faces twist from excitement to shock in seconds. Mason staggered to his feet, clutching his chest. His eyes were glassy, his breath shallow. He took a few steps towards the gate, then dropped like a rock. The arena went silent. No one moved. The bull trotted away, unaware of the horror it had just caused. Medical teams rushed in. The other riders, men who lived every day knowing this could happen to them, formed a tight circle, watching in disbelief. The EMTs worked quickly, performing CPR, stabilizing his chest, anything to keep him alive. Mason Lowe was rushed to the hospital, but by the time he arrived, it was too late. The impact had crushed part of his heart and torn major vessels inside his chest. His body couldn't recover. The bull riding world had lost one of its brightest stars, and Denver had witnessed something it hadn't seen in over a century: death in the arena. But Mason's story didn't start that night. It began years earlier, on a small Missouri farm, where a fearless kid first climbed onto a calf and refused to let go. Long before the flashing lights and roaring crowds, Mason Lowe was just a kid from a small Missouri town with a wild streak in his blood. While other kids were playing video games, Mason was climbing fences and riding calves on his family's farm. He was only 3 years old when he first gripped a rope and tried to stay on. Tiny legs wrapped around a milk calf, eyes wide with excitement. Even then, he didn't fear falling. He feared quitting. By the time he was a teenager, Mason wasn't satisfied with small-town rodeos. He wanted the real danger, the kind that separated amateurs from legends. While most his age were chasing trophies in school events, Mason skipped the high school rodeo circuit completely. He went straight into the dirt pits of amateur bull riding, where the bulls were bigger, the crowds louder, and the stakes deadly. Every fall, every bruise, every broken bone. Mason wore them like medals. He'd limp out of an arena one night and be back on a bull the next weekend. That's what made him different. He didn't just want to ride bulls, he wanted to conquer them. At just 18, Mason earned his PBR card, the golden ticket into the Professional Bull Riders League, the most brutal and prestigious stage in the sport. From there, his rise was rapid. He won over $100,000 at the 2015 PBR World Finals, earning a reputation for being fearless, the kind of guy who'd choose the most unpredictable bull in the pen just to test himself. By 2019, he was ranked 18th in the world, one of the youngest and toughest riders in the circuit. Every arena he entered erupted when they heard his name. Mason wasn't flashy or arrogant. He just showed up, climbed on, and let his riding do the talking. But behind that grit was a simple truth. Bull riding doesn't forgive mistakes. Every 8-second ride is a gamble with your life. You could do everything right and still not make it home. Mason knew that. They all do. Yet, he never backed down. When he got the call that he'd be riding Hard Times at the Denver event, he was thrilled. That bull was a monster, known for his power and unpredictability. But to Mason, that was exactly the challenge he lived for. He even called friends and said how excited he was to ride him. No one could have guessed that Hard Times would be the last bull Mason ever faced. That night, under the blinding arena lights, Mason tightened his glove, gave a nod to the gatekeeper, and whispered his usual words before every ride. "Let's go to work." He didn't know that work would cost him everything. The hit that killed Mason Lowe was the kind you don't walk away from. It wasn't a freak accident. It was physics, force, and fate colliding in one terrible second. When Hard Times' hooves came down, the impact crushed Mason's chest with nearly 1,500 pounds of pressure. His protective vest absorbed what it could, but it wasn't enough. The bull's hoof landed perfectly, fatally, right over his heart. The crowd's cheers turned into gasps. The air in the Denver arena went still. Mason stumbled, one hand pressed against his chest, eyes wide in confusion, pain written across his face. For a brief moment, he tried to keep walking. Then his legs gave out. He dropped to the dirt, a cowboy's final fall. The medics sprinted in. The bullfighters, who risked their own lives to protect riders, circled him immediately. They shouted for the crowd to stay calm, but there was no calm left in the building. The arena that had been filled with wild energy minutes earlier was now frozen in horror. They rushed Mason to the Denver Health Medical Center, but the damage was too severe. His heart had been torn internally, something no vest, no gear, no prayer could stop. Doctors fought to bring him back, but within hours, Mason Lowe was gone. Just 25 years old. He became only the third rider in PBR history to die during competition, and the first fatality in the 113-year history of the National Western Stock Show. The rodeo world was in disbelief. These riders knew the dangers, but Mason wasn't a rookie. He was one of the best. If it could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. After the tragedy, many questioned the bull. Should Hard Times be retired? Was he too dangerous? But the truth was harsher. The bull wasn't to blame. Rodeo officials reviewed the footage and determined that Hard Times acted purely on instinct. Bulls don't aim, they react. Mason had simply fallen in the wrong spot at the wrong time. The bull was cleared to compete again, and to this day, Hard Times still bucks riders across the country, a living reminder of the sport's unforgiving reality. But Mason's story didn't end in that dirt. It carried on through the people who loved him and the entire bull riding community that mourned him like family. His fellow riders honored him by wearing black armbands. His close friend Jess Lockwood crafted a cross from Mason's last pair of chaps and kept it in his gear bag as a tribute. Later, PBR introduced the Mason Lowe Award, given every year to the rider who earns the highest marked ride of the season, a symbol of courage, precision, and heart. Mason's widow, Abby Lowe, personally presented the first one to Lockwood in Las Vegas, in front of thousands of fans who stood in silence. They didn't just see a cowboy, they saw a man who lived every day chasing something most people are too afraid to even try: the edge between control and chaos. Mason Lowe's name will forever echo in the rodeo world, a reminder that bull riding is not just a sport, it's a dance with death, and sometimes the bull wins,